The story begins with a woman named Yushi, who finally decides to divorce her husband after enduring years of abuse. Not only did he treat her poorly, but he also physically tortured and beat her. Yushi believed that ending the marriage would finally bring peace to her life. Unfortunately, her troubles were far from over. Her ex-husband was an extremely cruel man, and he soon revealed his next move. He filed a lawsuit to take custody of their daughter. To strengthen his case, he claimed that Yushi was mentally unstable and incapable of raising a child. He even dragged her painful childhood into court, explaining that her parents had divorced when she was young and that growing up alone had supposedly damaged her mental health. Now, if Yushi wanted to keep her daughter, she would have to prove her mental stability in court and win the custody battle. The situation became even harder because she worked at a newspaper company where the salary was barely enough to support both herself and her daughter. Desperate to reduce expenses, Yushi searched for a cheaper place to live and eventually found an apartment with incredibly low rent. The moment she saw the building, it became obvious why it was so affordable. The structure was old, poorly maintained, and filled with countless defects. However, Yushi had no choice. All she needed was a roof over her daughter's head, so she immediately agreed to rent the apartment and paid the monthly rent. As Yushi and her daughter moved into the building, they used an old elevator that was monitored by an outdated CCTV system. While watching the footage, the building manager noticed something strange. He saw Yushi and her daughter entering the elevator, but there appeared to be a third little girl standing with them. At first, this seemed normal. However, when the CCTV footage was checked again, the mysterious girl had completely disappeared. The footage now showed only Yushi and her daughter. Meanwhile, Yushi's daughter began exploring the rooftop terrace and discovered a red bag lying there. She liked it so much that she brought it home with her. But Yushi quickly explained that keeping someone else's belongings was wrong. So they handed the bag over to the manager and asked him to return it to its rightful owner. As the days passed, life in the apartment became increasingly uncomfortable. One day, Yushi noticed a dark stain spreading across the ceiling of her apartment. To make matters worse, water soon started dripping from it. She immediately realized that there was probably a leak somewhere in the apartment above. When she complained to the manager, he simply shrugged it off. According to him, the building was extremely old, and the residents had to learn to live with such problems. With no other option, Yushi returned to her apartment and placed a small tub beneath the leak to collect the water. However, something felt unusual. The tub kept filling up far too quickly, much faster than it should have. Growing suspicious, Yushi finally decided to visit the apartment upstairs and personally request the residents to fix whatever was causing the leak. Yushi goes upstairs to speak with the residents about the leak in her apartment. However, despite ringing the doorbell several times, nobody answers. After waiting for several minutes, she gives up and heads back toward the elevator. But just as she is about to leave, something catches her attention. Standing near the apartment is a little girl wearing a yellow raincoat. The sight surprises Yushi, and she immediately stops the elevator and rushes back toward the apartment. Yet when she arrives, the mysterious girl has completely vanished. Life continues, but the strange incidents refuse to stop. One day, after finishing her household chores, Yushi goes downstairs to throw away the garbage. There, she notices something shocking. The same red bag that her daughter had handed over to the manager is now lying inside the trash bin. At this point, Yushi is already overwhelmed with problems. She keeps trying to ignore the strange events around her because all she wants is a normal life. But with each passing day, things only become more difficult. Her workload at the newspaper office keeps increasing, making it harder for her to spend time with her daughter. As if that wasn't enough, she has also started suffering from severe headaches that leave her exhausted. One evening, she goes to get some water so she can take her medicine. But instead of clean water, filthy and contaminated water begins flowing from the tap. Frustrated, she once again complains to the building manager. Unfortunately, just like every other time, he completely ignores her concerns and does nothing to solve the problem. Disappointed, Yushi returns to her apartment. As she steps into the elevator, she notices something that instantly makes her uneasy. The elevator buttons on her floor are covered with the same strange black marks she has been seeing throughout her apartment. For the first time, genuine fear begins to creep into her mind. Still, she convinces herself not to overthink it and tries to continue living normally. The following day becomes even worse. Yushi gets stuck at work because of an important meeting and ends up running extremely late. By the time she reaches her daughter's school, it is already nighttime. The school gates are locked, the building is empty, and her daughter is nowhere to be found. Panic instantly takes over. Yushi frantically searches the area, unsure of where to look or what to do. Then, while searching, she notices a poster featuring a missing girl named Mitsuko, who disappeared years ago and was never found. Seeing the poster sends a chill down her spine and makes her fear the worst. Terrified, Yushi searches even more desperately. Fortunately, after a frantic search, she finally finds her daughter safe with a kind stranger who is trying to bring her home. Relieved, she takes her daughter back to the apartment. However, her daughter is extremely upset with her for arriving so late. She immediately heads to the rooftop terrace, where she discovers something unexpected. The same red bag is once again lying in the exact spot where she originally found it. The girl has grown attached to the bag and wants to keep it, but Yushi firmly refuses. She reminds her daughter that they should never take things that belong to other people. Then she adds that she already saw the bag in the trash a few days ago and promises to throw it away herself. As more days pass, another disturbing change begins to emerge. Yushi's daughter, Ikuko, becomes increasingly frightened. The reason soon becomes clear. She has started seeing the same mysterious little girl that Yushi saw near the upper floor apartment. The girl always appears wearing a yellow raincoat, and every single time she appears, she is carrying that same red bag. Ikuko had been seeing the mysterious girl for quite some time. One day, while she was playing at school, the girl suddenly appeared in front of her once again. The sight terrified Ikuko so much that she immediately fainted. The school quickly contacted Yushi and asked her to come in. When she arrived, the teachers explained that Ikuko had been unusually quiet and withdrawn for several weeks. They were also concerned because she constantly drew the same figure in her notebooks, a little girl wearing a yellow raincoat. The moment Yushi looked at the drawings, her heart sank. The child in the pictures was identical to the mysterious girl she had seen multiple times inside the apartment building. Before she could process what was happening, an elderly teacher approached her with an even more disturbing revelation. Taking Yushi aside, the teacher explained that the girl in Ikuko's drawings had disappeared nearly a year ago and was never found. According to reports, the last time anyone saw her, she was wearing a yellow raincoat and carrying a red bag. Hearing this leaves Yushi completely shaken. If the girl vanished a year ago and was never found, then who exactly were she and her daughter seeing? That night, Yushi brings Ikuko home and tries to rest. However, when she wakes up later, she discovers that her daughter is gone. Panic instantly takes over. She searches every corner of the apartment but finds no sign of Ikuko. Fearing the worst, Yushi rushes into the corridor. A terrifying thought suddenly crosses her mind. What if Ikuko had followed the mysterious girl in the yellow raincoat? Without wasting another second, she runs upstairs toward the apartment where she had seen the girl before. To her surprise, the apartment door isn't even locked. As soon as she steps inside, she is greeted by a disturbing sight. The entire apartment is flooded with water, and every light inside is turned on. The atmosphere feels unnatural and deeply unsettling. Then she finally finds Ikuko. Her daughter is there, but something is terribly wrong. She is completely unconscious and unresponsive. Yushi immediately picks her up and prepares to leave. But before walking out, something catches her eye. Hanging inside the apartment are several photographs of the same little girl she has been seeing throughout the building. Looking through them, Yushi learns that the girl once lived in this apartment with her father. At that moment, everything becomes even more frightening. The condition of the apartment, the flooded rooms, the mysterious sightings, and the missing child from the photographs all seem connected. Yushi becomes convinced that something terrible has happened here. Terrified, she rushes downstairs with Ikuko and immediately begins packing their belongings. She wants to leave the building as quickly as possible and never return. However, before she can move out, her lawyer arrives and stops her. He explains that constantly changing residences would only damage her custody case. In court, her ex-husband is already trying to prove that she is mentally unstable. Leaving another apartment suddenly could strengthen those accusations. The lawyer further reminds her that she needs a permanent address to prove that she can provide a stable home for her daughter. With no other choice, Yushi reluctantly agrees to stay. Soon afterward, the lawyer and the building caretaker arrange repairs throughout the apartment. The leaks are fixed, the damaged areas are restored, and for a while, everything appears normal again. More importantly, neither Yushi nor Ikuko sees the girl in the yellow raincoat anymore. As the strange incidents begin to fade away, Yushi slowly starts believing that her nightmare may finally be over. But just when she begins feeling safe again, another disturbing discovery changes everything. One day, while checking her daughter's belongings, Yushi finds the same red bag inside Ikuko's school bag. The very same bag that she had personally thrown into the trash had somehow found its way back once again. The sight of the red bag terrifies Yushi. She immediately confronts Ikuko and asks where she found it. After all, Yushi had already thrown the bag away herself. But Ikuko looks genuinely confused and insists that she never touched the bag or placed it inside her school bag. As Yushi takes the bag into her hands, something strange suddenly happens. A disturbing vision flashes through her mind. In it, she sees the red bag falling into the rooftop water tank. The vision feels so real that Yushi realizes it isn't just her imagination. Somehow, the spirit of Mitsuko is trying to show her something important. Determined to uncover the truth, Yushi decides to go to the rooftop immediately. Ikuko asks to come with her, but Yushi refuses. Wanting to protect her daughter, she leaves her inside the apartment, locks the door, and rushes upstairs alone. When she reaches the rooftop, she heads straight toward the water tank she saw in her vision. The moment she touches it, another powerful vision overwhelms her. This time, she sees the little girl climbing onto the water tank years earlier. Through the vision, Yushi finally learns the truth about Mitsuko's tragic past. The child lived alone with her father. Her mother was no longer part of her life, and whenever her father went to work, she had no one to look after her. One day, while playing near the rooftop, Mitsuko wandered too close to the water tank. A terrible accident followed, and she fell inside. Trapped and helpless, the little girl drowned, leaving her spirit behind. Yushi finally understands why the ghost has been following them. Mitsuko was jealous. She never had the love and care of a mother, and seeing the bond between Yushi and Ikuko filled her with resentment. The spirit wanted what she could never have. A horrifying realization suddenly hits Yushi. If Mitsuko's jealousy has grown this strong, then Ikuko could be in serious danger. Without wasting another second, she rushes back to the apartment. When she arrives, she finds her daughter lying unconscious. A flashback reveals what happened moments earlier. Shortly after Yushi left, Ikuko noticed that the bathtub faucet had somehow been turned on. Curious, she entered the bathroom. To her shock, the bathtub began filling up on its own at an unnatural speed. As she tried to turn off the water, the liquid suddenly turned pitch black. Then two terrifying black hands emerged from the bathtub. The ghostly hands grabbed her and dragged her underwater. It was clear that Mitsuko had finally decided to attack. Yushi quickly picks up her unconscious daughter and runs from the apartment. She enters the elevator and desperately tries to escape the building. But the nightmare is far from over. As the elevator begins moving, water suddenly starts flooding the cabin. The amount of water keeps increasing, but Yushi ignores it. Her only concern is getting her daughter to safety. Then something impossible happens. Yushi suddenly notices Ikuko standing outside near the apartment corridor. Confused, she looks down at the child in her arms and realizes with horror that it isn't her daughter at all. The figure transforms into Mitsuko's spirit and violently attacks her. At that moment, Yushi understands a heartbreaking truth. Mitsuko will never stop hunting them. As long as Yushi is alive, the spirit will continue targeting Ikuko. Realizing there is only one way to save her daughter, Yushi makes the ultimate sacrifice. She sends the elevator upward toward Mitsuko's apartment, choosing to face the spirit alone. Meanwhile, Ikuko chases after the elevator by running up the stairs. When she finally reaches the top and the elevator doors open, a massive torrent of water crashes out, but there is no sign of her mother. The elevator is completely empty. It becomes painfully clear that Mitsuko has taken Yushi away forever. Ikuko survives, but only because her mother sacrificed herself to save her life. Many years later, the story jumps forward in time. Ikuko is now an adult and lives with her father. Although she has grown up and built a stable life, she has never forgotten her mother. Today marks the anniversary of Yushi's disappearance, and the memories leave Ikuko deeply emotional. Wanting answers, she decides to return to the old apartment building where everything happened. The apartment where she once lived with her mother has long been abandoned and fallen into ruin. However, her real destination is the apartment upstairs, the place where Mitsuko once lived. When Ikuko finally opens the door and steps inside, she is stunned. The apartment should have been deserted for years. Yet, despite having no residents, the entire place is spotless, as if someone has been taking care of it all this time. The moment Ikuko steps inside, she notices something impossible. Every room is perfectly clean and neatly arranged. There isn't a trace of dust anywhere. The apartment looks as if someone has been living there and taking care of it all these years. The sight makes her uneasy, but before she can understand what's happening, a familiar figure suddenly appears before her. It is her mother. Ikuko freezes in shock. For years, she believed that Yushi had disappeared forever. Yet now, her mother's spirit is standing right in front of her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Ikuko can barely speak. Yushi gently explains that she never truly left. Even after her sacrifice, she remained in this world, quietly watching over her daughter. She tells Ikuko that she has always been nearby, protecting her from afar. Although Ikuko could never see her, Yushi witnessed every important moment of her life. She watched her grow up, overcome hardships, and become a good person. Looking at her now, Yushi says she is proud of the woman her daughter has become. Hearing these words fills Ikuko with emotion. Years of pain, longing, and unanswered questions suddenly come rushing back. Tears fill her eyes as she looks at her mother once more. Then Ikuko asks a heartbreaking question. She wonders if she can stay there with her mother and finally be together again. However, Yushi immediately refuses. She knows that Mitsuko's spirit is still trapped within the apartment. The ghost's jealousy and resentment have never disappeared. Long ago, Yushi sacrificed her own life to protect Ikuko from that darkness, and she has no intention of letting her daughter face it again. Suddenly, Ikuko feels a chilling presence behind her. A sense of dread washes over her as she slowly turns around. Standing there is Mitsuko's spirit. Terrified, Ikuko immediately looks back toward her mother. But to her horror, Yushi's spirit has vanished. It feels as though Mitsuko has once again taken her away. For a moment, Ikuko sits there alone, overwhelmed by sadness and memories. She realizes that some wounds can never fully heal, but her mother's love has remained with her all these years. After spending a final moment in the apartment, Ikuko quietly leaves the building behind. With the memories of her mother in her heart, she finally moves forward with her life. And with that emotional farewell, the movie comes to an end.